Day 2 of Baltimore Ravens OTAs. It is in the books, and Lamar Jackson silenced his haters. We talk about that. Multiple Ravens players stepping up and showing out at practice, as well as John Harbaugh giving a surprising injury update. All that and more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Here with you, it's your host, Kevin Oestreicher, Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. Your first listen each and every single day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday, bringing you daily Ravens coverage. And plus, we go live after every single Ravens game. We go live after every single piece of Ravens big news, and we sometimes have those bonus episodes on the weekend. And shout out to the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and if you're somewhere in the middle, shout out to you as well. Here with us today, it is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail. And Q, don't you just love it? Football is back in the air. The guys are back on the field, including Mr. Lamar Jackson, who silenced some of the haters who said, man, Lamar's not there. This is a disgrace. Why isn't Lamar there? He wasn't seen in that video of DeAndre Hopkins. Well, guess what? Lamar Jackson was there. He was jumping for joy with Tyler Linderbaum in some of these videos. And by all accounts, Q, he was looking pretty good on that field as well.
Yeah, I will confirm that the reports are true. Lamar Jackson was absolutely in the building and looked the part as obviously the franchise quarterback, the two-time league MVP, should have been last year's reigning MVP, but we digress. He is there. He looked great, looked in shape, arm was live, just Lamar Jackson, the Lamar Jackson that we kind of come to know. And I think when you see voluntary, OTAs, you get guys coming in, no question about it, but it means something more when you have your leader there, your franchise quarterback there, and I think other guys that maybe weren't possibly there as well. The fact that he came in, like, my goodness, it looked like a normal regular season practice with the entirety of the team there.
Yeah, and for everybody who was there, Q, you were part of this group as well. Everybody said that it was one of the most impressive OTA practices in terms of attendance, especially in the Lamar Jackson era, because you're right, it is voluntary, and really only 5 Ravens not practicing, and one of them, Emory Jones, was there but just could not practice due to his labrum injury. So Lamar Jackson, he shows up. There were questions about whether he would, and again, it's voluntary. If Lamar didn't show up, okay, it's voluntary, it's fine. But the guys who were not there, Daniel Falele, Jake Hummel, Chidobe Awuzie, and Kyle Van Noy. Now, there were some clarifications on some of these guys, and obviously with Jones not practicing due to his labrum, but John Harbaugh says that Daniel Falele was working through some physical things and he should be back soon, and Chidobe Awuzie is sick, so that is important clarification. But man, Q, when you have an attendance sheet like that with most of your vets showing up and everybody working towards one goal, you don't want to be the guy that doesn't show up. And so, people were looking at a Van Noy. Again, I'm going to stay consistent here. It is voluntary. Kyle Van Noy, it is fine that he didn't show up. I'm not going to come on here and bash Kyle Van Noy for not being there. But I'm just impressed with the attendance. I'm super excited. Lamar, Derrick Henry, Roquan, all these vets were there. And I said on yesterday's show, Q, it's definitely a statement showing up and saying, hey, we know we don't have to be here, but we want to get as many reps in as we can, as much time with the coaches as we can, to make sure we're as sharp as we can heading in to week 1 in what is a very important season.
So it's interesting you bring up Kyle Van Noy, because if you remember when we looked at when Eric DeCosta signed him originally, that he missed pretty much all the training camp and, was a critical cog in being the number 1 defense for the Baltimore Ravens and why they led the league in sacks, pressures, and turnovers. And so I think, last year proved that he can, have a modified offseason as well again. And go out there and produce. I think the main thing is the main thing. It's the regular season for a veteran of his stature. When you talk about, yes, what this team is looking to do and how they're looking to move forward and, be that team that is an explosive, available for the postseason team, what I am seeing and what I am looking at is the off season is one thing, but technically, like, I'm feeling like the regular season is one thing. This team, they know they're built to practice hard, play hard, win games in the regular season. It's about the maturing and understanding of what it takes to play mistake free to advance into the Super Bowl, period, into discussion. Like, we've been there, done that. All the other guys that are there, they're there because they recognize that, we're building something that the window is only open. This is the NFL. The window opens. You think it's wide open. You think you have a lot of time, and then it closes on you. And when it closes, you're done. I think that's something that I'm looking at when it comes to whether Kyle Van Noy, Lamar Jackson, D-Hop is there for a reason because he knows that there's a window of opening to be there. Heck, he thought he was going to, be in the window with the Kansas City Chiefs last year. We saw what happened there. They got mud stomped by the Philadelphia Eagles. So he's ring chasing himself. There is this window that is open. Take advantage of it now that it is open because there are no guarantees that it stays open.
Yeah, it's true. And, for Lamar coming in, being a part of OTAs, I think it's again, an awesome message that all these vets are giving, that they want to win. They want to be at their best. But I also think, again, the performance on the field from Lamar on day 2, and you saw it firsthand being there. Jonas Schaefer provided some unofficial stats when it came to Lamar's day. He ended up going 10 of 11 unofficially. So this is unofficial, but 10 of 11 for Lamar. He was looking really good, according to Jonas. And I think also one of the guys that everybody's talking about is maybe an underrated player that could get more reps this season. Tez Walker Q got a lot of praise from a lot of different people. Jonas said Tez almost ran him over on a touchdown catch, but he said that he was very active with the 1s and 2s, a bunch of catches. So how did Lamar look, and what did you see from Lamar? And then how did Tez look? That's really intriguing to me.
So I think starting with Lamar, the one thing that stood out to me, again, he just he has this springiness, this alertness, this energetic riz that just you look at and recognize why guys say he's one of one and why guys love playing with him. But that being said, the command and the comfort of him running the offense was there. This is the third iteration of the offense. Todd Monken and him so on the same page. Matter of fact, I didn't even think Todd was there. It just seemed like it was so seamless. And what I mean by that is you saw Todd really just injecting himself to make sure everything was running. This year, it was just Lamar, boom. All right, here we go. Get a reps. Okay, next guy comes in. Boom, Cooper Rush, get your reps. Okay, Devin Leary, go ahead and get your reps. Boom. It was just a smooth running machine. Lamar was accurate. I think the incomplete possibly was, ironically, to Tez Walker on an end cut. Yeah, that was Lamar's throw because there was another one where I think it was Devin Leary, and Devin's was a later throw or a late throw, whereas Lamar's was high and behind. So the late throw, the DB was able to catch up, whereas I think for Lamar's throw, it was, you had the guy jump up and really try to make a challenging catch and just didn't come down with it. The deep ball looked pretty. The intermediate throws look great. And I guess the other one, there was an incompletion from Zay, Flowers, and if Zay is in there, I'm imagining that Lamar was in there. So was Tez both of his incompletions from the backups? That is the question that Jonas and those guys, I'm sure if we were all sitting there powwowing, we could kind of, analyze and break down. Let
Yeah,
me pause on that and go back over to Tez Walker. Dude looked fast. Dude looked strong. Dude looked really good. He got to get some electrolytes in him because he did have some little cramping issues on what I think was just, him just running and doing this thing. But that was a very good. Yes, I can confirm he ran over some members of the media, and Jonas Schaefer was like, "What? Oh my God!" He almost had some battle scars, but I think overall, when you look at what Tez brings to the game, it's that explosive speed, very much a contested catch kind of a guy. I mean, it was a corner route in the end zone, and you could see how he's holding off the defender and did really late hands and did a toe touch tap back in the end zone, kind of reminiscent of, although he was a little bit more wide open against the Giants. But the DB, I had the roster with me, but I think it might have been either 39 or 37 that was covering him, and he was able to just snatch it, get his feet down, and he looked good. So, as they say, you got to stack days, and hopefully Tez Walker can stack those days for himself.
Man, we know 39 is not Eddie Jackson anymore. We know that for sure. So although it maybe could have been with Tez making him look like that. So we'll see what happens with Tez, man. But I'm excited.
Eddie Jackson.
Man, old friend, Ravens legend, Eddie Jackson. And yeah, I'm looking through Ryan Mink's practice notes, and he said on Lamar that he mentioned that deep ball, right? There was that one to Dayton Wade that Ryan Mink talked about in between Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey. But he says that Lamar slapped the ground after throwing one pass too high and behind and did push-ups after missing a potential touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins. So you can see that greatness being there for Lamar. He wants every rep to be perfect. And that's just who Lamar is, a competitor at heart and someone who does not want to make mistakes. And coming up, Q and I will continue to talk about what he saw during day 2 of OTAs, and we'll talk a little bit about the surprising injury update that John Harbaugh gave on Darius Washington. So stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. And the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. The Pacers are up 3-1 on the Knicks. They'll be going back to New York to try to close the series out and head to the finals. Right now on FanDuel, the Knicks are 4.5-point favorites at home. I've been saying the Pacers this whole series, and I'm going to stick with it. Pacers at 4.5 road underdogs. I like that. The Pacers have been a good road team all year, and if you're looking to build out maybe a same-game parlay, Tyrese Halliburton has been awesome. I'd probably go him over. Aaron Nesmith, this guy I've also been really high on, and he's been great, so I'd probably go him over. And then I like Miles Turner in this game to go over as well. So FanDuel is the place to go, and if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still talking with you here. Day 2 of OTAs in the books for Baltimore, and Q had a first-hand look at how these guys looked on the practice field. A very good day of attendance at OTAs. Odafe Owe, Mark Andrews, speaking to the media, Isaiah Likely, and all of them with practically the same message saying, we're not satisfied. We are mad at where we have finished. We want to continue to ascend and get to our goal, which is winning a Super Bowl. So seems like this team Q is locked in. John Harbaugh did speak to the media after practice. He was very complimentary of Lamar Jackson and was very happy about the attendance numbers the team ended up getting. But he gave an injury update on Darius Washington that I think took a lot of people by surprise and in a good way. And obviously, Q, with you being a part and a part of the sports world and having vast experience working with injuries and sports performance, I wanted to get your opinion on John Harbaugh's, I don't want to say it was a diagnosis, but on John Harbaugh's comments about Ardarius. So we know Ardarius suffered an injury. He tore his Achilles. John Harbaugh classified it as a clean tear and said that Ardarius has told him that he'll be back in November. And Harbaugh said the team is counting on him being back maybe in like a November or December timeline. Now, we said it's all speculation right now. Obviously, there was no guarantee from John Harbaugh. And we know sometimes with John, those injury timelines don't always come to fruition, especially this being so early after an Achilles tear, a serious injury for Ardarius. So, Q, in your years dealing with Achilles tears and working through it and your experiences, do you feel like a guy that tore his Achilles in May would be able to come back by November or December, especially, and I think the clarification here is key, on a clean tear, which obviously there are multiple types of tears you can experience?
Yeah. So it's not that John is speculating. John sits in front of all his doctors and the trainers, and he gets the report. And so they're giving him a full understanding of what the Achilles injury looks like, what is the timeline, who is the guy that, in this particular case, Ardarius Washington, who is the guy that is injured, why or what does it look like as far as their mental state and their processing, and you kind of formulate all that. And that's where I think he spit out the number November from. I think for an Achilles rupture, which I have a Achilles repair, in that time frame, if you are conservatively aggressive, you can come back from that Achilles, and yes, you can play. And so the big thing is, though, in that November timeline, like for Ardarius, like, yes, if he does what he needs to do, and they, like, it's a really fine line, but if they do it right, because you're talking about other guys who have had that injury, whether it been Terrell Suggs, whether it been Steve Smith Sr., whether it been, numerous amounts of players, Ben Watson. When you rupture it, obviously your story gets filed away, and they're going to reuse that to get understanding. And that's why I think, John is formulating all that. So my own personal experiences, I was super aggressive, and I clearly am not saying that I would have been ready to play the National Football League again. But I think for Ardarius, if he's super aggressive, but then if he's also, whether it be locking in, watching film, doing all the things, figuring out how to get himself into shape, though, that's going to be, the big challenge, because yeah, you can say he's back, but similar to, a Keaton Mitchell-like type scenario, or heck, Ronnie Stanley-like type scenario, where both of those guys had devastating injuries, but you saw where, you come back, you're still not quite there. So there's a lot in that one statement. Sure, there's encouragement. Sure, there's optimism, but mother of pearl, in my mind, you could be back November. I just don't know if he is going to be clear to play, especially if that number 24 goes out there and that dude becomes this baller, or you got some other young dudes playing special teams, doing their thing, and when their number is called upon, you got this solid group of, secondary guys, and Ardarius is, hey, Ardarius, it's okay. You don't have to rush. What I mean? Like, there's a lot there to unpack. You can't just say face value, November, here he is. We got to wait and see.
And that makes sense. And the Ravens generally have been pretty safe with their injuries in terms of not trying to rush guys back. So I feel like that will be the case again. And again, Harbaugh added, hey, it's speculation in terms of when he'll actually return. But again, I don't think the timeline was random, that John Harbaugh just threw out 2 random months and said, oh yeah, maybe then. No, you're right. He's in front of his doctors. But can you kind of give clarification on a clean tear versus a partial tear, and maybe what the differences in recovery are from that? Because, with the clean tears, which is the one that apparently heals quicker according to everybody, I mean, what does that look like in terms of whether it had been a partial tear or a clean tear? And there's no pros to being
So,
injured, but I guess the pros and cons of having either one.
right. So partial tear, I mean, there's still some ligament attached. They don't recommend surgery for that because there's protocols that you would put into play that would warrant the healing of it all. And so that's where, you would get the partial tear, but it just takes a heck of a lot longer. When it is a full rupture, which is what I had, technically, they call it catgut, but basically it's a woven fiber that you kind of put on and then you weave, the sutures and everything. So you're kind of like clamping on the Achilles because it more than likely rolled up or rolled down. Hopefully it rolled up, and you can take it down from the soleus and kind of attach it, if you will, through the heel of the foot. Although there's some complications that could potentially be from there, but like there are multiple ways, depending upon the surgeon and what they feel comfortable with and their experiences as far as healing. But see, the thing is, it's not just like once you get the surgery, there are some really super awesome aggressive modalities that you can, implement. For example, like frequency specific microcurrent. There's some tendon protocols that you could put forth that would really enhance the healing. Again, as aggressive as you want to be, like that's where you would have that advantage of coming back and feeling like, you can move and groove without any setbacks. I'm not privy to the inside knowledge of the Ravens if they do have access to those things. Is he getting, for example, hyperbaric oxygen therapy? That's been known to accelerate recovery. Photobiomodulation, that is another avenue in which you can, recover and get some tremendous. I mean, that one really, photobiomodulation really helped me out in my Achilles return, and I didn't feel anything. So there are multiple ways to put yourself in a position to accelerate your healing.
And for our Darius, hopefully it's as speedy of a recovery as possible. And coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into more of OTA observations, including Odafe Oweh's body transformation, Mark Andrews, and so much more coming up next on Locked On Ravens. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher, Qadry Ismail, still breaking everything Ravens down with you here as we are diving into OTAs day 2. Q was boots on the ground, so he got to see everything firsthand with his own eyes. And Q, Odafe Oweh has gotten a lot of conversation put around him because of his body transformation. Said he is up 20 pounds from 245 to 265, and said that he went down to Miami shortly after the Buffalo loss, started working on gaining that muscle, and he hopes that it will help him both defending the run and as a pass rusher with push-off and power. So how did Oweh look, and how do you think him adding on that 20 pounds is going to help him?
So it's interesting because it seems like he is saying he went to a nutritionist that really was deliberate in what he ate, why he ate, what he did to put on that weight. Good for him. You don't want to just put on sloppy weight. Sloppy weight can be just eating anything. Sure, you could lift, but in that lifting and in that sloppy weight, you can actually get low-level inflammation, and then you wind up being stiff and you don't have the athletic speed that Odafe wants to keep. And so I think for him putting on that weight, and from what he's feeling, he feels like he hasn't really lost his edge and his speed. And I think he feels he can add in a little more speed to power. And when he's ripping through the guy, he can rip through the guy with a little bit more oomph, if you will, because of the added extra weight that pretty much he put on cleanly.
It's interesting too, because for Owe, obviously having the double-digit sack year last season, we know that he is not content, but him finding ways to improve himself and just feel better and feel like he can be more productive, which I think is really intriguing and exciting for him. But it's not just about the body transformation of Odafe Owe, because Mark Andrews Q took the podium for the first time since the Buffalo loss, and obviously he explained his side of that, and it's tough kind of reliving that moment, and it's for no one else other than Mark. Like, he'll have to relive that probably for the rest of his life. But he said, quote, "It's tough. This is my life. I put a lot of work into this. Everything I do and think about is focused on that. So it wasn't the way I planned, but that's all part of the story. I've been using it as fuel. I had an incredible off season." And he also said that he leaned on Derrick Henry a little bit to changes in his routine over the course of the offseason. And Q, you and I have talked about Derrick Henry and the influence that he has had on the team, both on and off of the field. So hearing Mark, listening to Mark, and watching Mark, what did you kind of take away from what he had to say, particularly about, how he tried to better himself this offseason?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway was the support system that he had in place. The reality of him recognizing that the world doesn't end because of a mistake. The world continues to go on within his family, those that love him. They're not dependent on the results outcome of a game that is fun. If you gamble, and in that gambling, that's on you for losing that money, dummy. And so for him, sure. Did it take a hit to his legacy? Sure. Did it, disappoint some of his teammates that thought maybe they were going to advance to the next round? Sure. But is he loved by the people that really know him? Yes. Is his character changing any? No. Is he still going to use this moment to continue to help himself be a better person? Yes. And that was the biggest takeaway that I felt he was trying to articulate to us, the media. Good for him to have that strong sense of self and reality. And yeah, he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. Let's see how your glass house looks when you are trying to jump on Mark Andrews. I like it. I like his mindset. I think it can only make him mentally stronger. And yes, ironically enough, what I saw from the viewing, Lamar was like, shoot, here we go. Going to give you the ball. Boom. As soon as the pass went out there, and off he went. So old times, I guess, if you will, when it came to connecting with 8 and 89.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they missed a beat from all accounts. And Andrews was also asked about his contract, said it's not for him to deal with that. Just, kind of reiterated the fact that he was really excited to be back in Baltimore, but obviously there are looming questions with what that tight end room is going to look like next season. But Q, those are next season questions. We know that this year they have Mark, they have Isaiah, they have Charlie. That is their tight end room. But let's just get into more general observations from your side of things. Was there anybody else that caught your eye over the course of practice on Wednesday? Was there anybody that you came away impressed with or intrigued with, or someone that maybe you didn't think was going to catch your eye that maybe did?
I was just impressed that they put Malaki Starks right up in there with the first team unit. I loved how both him and Marlon and Kyle Hamilton all just seemed like they were just flowing and grooving. That was a really cool thing to see. You really couldn't see much because they're not trying to, be the defense overly competitive. But there were a lot of young secondary guys like my guy TJ Tampa, who I thought he really looked apart running with the first team unit as well. So from a running with the first team unit aspect of things, man, take my hat off to them. Tip of the cap. They did their thing. They did their thing.
And I think it's also intriguing, not just on the defensive side of the ball, because, the rookies coming in, making impacts like we saw Nate Wiggins and Roger Rosengarten do last year. It's going to be big. And speaking of Nate Wiggins, it's been making the rounds on social media. I don't know if you've seen it, but people are excited about Nate Wiggins and his potential body transformation. Did he look any different to you? Did he look like he put on some muscle this offseason, or was it really not that big of a difference to you?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Because I know what you're saying. Like I did notice him. I thought he, just Nate being Nate. Like he sticking when it was man-to-man coverage, looked good, followed the guy, did everything. You know what I mean? Like it didn't seem like it was one way or the other in my mind. Like, oh wow, he noticeably looks like a different body type. I didn't really see that. And that doesn't mean it's bad. That doesn't mean he's thinned out or he's thickened out. It just, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I thought he looked good though. I will say that.
And you're right. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing because we know that Nate came in. He was certainly a little skinny, quote unquote, skinny by league standards. But you know what? He turned his skinny frame into one of the better seasons in football at the cornerback position. So we know he can do it playing at that weight, playing with that frame. But if he wants to add a little more muscle, he feels like he can be better that way, then okay. That's totally fine. What about D-Hop, Q? D-Hop has been making the rounds. He's someone that everybody in this fan base is excited about. It feels like he had the hype video on Tuesday that everybody was really excited about too. And seeing him with Zay and Rashod and that wide receiver group, him and Lamar connecting, like it's getting the fan base excited. I know I'm excited for it, but your first impressions of D-Hop in a Ravens uniform, what were they?
So obviously the hype video, you saw the catch radius, but then you see it up close and personal. It reminded me of Odell Beckham Jr. when he got to the Ravens. He was a huge catch radius guy and, just could make plays. And I think D-Hop had that kind of ability as well. Went down and caught some low balls that, was really just good and strong, solid, had some toe top on the sideline type catches. John Harbaugh was mentioning that, he was blocking down, the field. Even I think Isaiah Likely was talking about that during 7-on-7. And yeah, you can't necessarily take a lot away from that, but you can take away from the fact that, here's a guy that's not necessarily resting on his laurels. Sure, he's on the downside of his career, but I think from a Nelson Aguilar upgrade, yeah, I think he is certainly, an upgrade, if you will, from what Nelly brings to the table. And Nelly, I have the highest amount of respect for as well. But it's training camp is where, for me, I want to see what the progression looks like when it comes to D-Hop. And that's when you got the one-on-one battles and all the things, and it's live scrimmaging. That's where I think I want to see the big jump, if you will.
Definitely the best wide receiver room Lamar has ever had during his tenure. And I double down on that because I say that I'm excited about everybody in that room and in what they have to prove and what they can do at the NFL level. But Q, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. Before we get you out of here, please tell people what's going on at Missile Training, where they can find you, and what you're working on.
Yeah, so it is. It's Missile Training, and you can go to missiletraining.com. Missiletraining.com is where you can find all your movement and sports performance needs, whether you are an individual, whether you are a team. If you're looking for improvement, doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter the age, 6 to 85, that's the age span that I currently work with. I have worked with soccer teams, baseball teams, softball teams. I've worked with them all, football teams, individuals, collegiates. I've worked with pros, worked with them all, still do. Love to work with you, missiletraining.com. And of course, WJZ is where you can find me for the Purple shows that I do throughout the year. Purple pregame is my mainstay, but also there are times where you'll see me on Purple Playbook. But each and every week, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and I, we break it down. Check us out here. We just break down it all, and we let you know what's going on and how it is going on, like you saw today when we were breaking down the Ravens OTA, open to the media practice.
Q's with us every week, and be sure you also check him out over at missiletraining.com. The links will all be in the description down below. Q, I appreciate you as always, and thank you to everybody who watched and listened to today's show. Coming up tomorrow, we'll continue talking about OTA takeaways, who looks good, and who can make an impact for this Ravens team, plus the latest storyline. So be sure to stay tuned, hit the like and subscribe button on the way out in video form and in audio form, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.